Oh man, it's been a minute now, hasn't it? Back here in the Wolves Den, there you see it, Jay Burr coming at you here at DJ Burr. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and all that good stuff here. Let's get into this thing here. I know we're a little rusty, so we're just gonna try to get our feet wet again, get our sea legs back, and all that kind of good stuff. We're getting into basketball season. It has been a bit of a roller coaster for both men's and women's programs. It's been wild here so far here. Let's get into the men's here. This past week had a pretty tough week. Had to take on it was 3 games over the week. Had to take on Georgia State. You see them playing right here. Also had to take on Troy and South Alabama. And then the conference does this weird thing where they traveled to South Alabama, but they hosted Troy. I don't really understand the methodology in that, but that was the case. Went 2-1 on those. Had the Cardiac Red Wolves are at it this year. They have come back in so many games. I'm talking not just a couple comebacks. We're calling comebacks of 10 or more in several games this year. We saw it a long time ago on the road there against Colorado State, against Tulsa, did it against Georgia State there, and also did it against Troy this past week. So, I mean, these guys have just been out of their minds. They're playing. It's very odd to say they're playing well, but they're not at the same time. It's a very odd dynamic, but they're getting the job done. 12 wins so far in the year. In fact, earlier in the year, we kind of reported that they got to the 10-win mark. This is the fastest they've ever done it in school history, and that's in terms of calendar days. Now, a lot of times that they've hit that 10-win mark before the new year, it's always been right on New Year's Eve. This one a couple days beforehand, so technically the fastest at 10 wins in school history here. But you've got a nice quad of players that are leading the way here. Caleb Fields really doing some work here, leading the way. He's averaging 11.6 points per game. In fact, you've got these four guys all over double digits. You've got Caleb Fields, Canbert Kush, Marquise Eaton, and then the new addition, Melo Eggleston. And that guy has really gotten this thing going. Amazing that he's already averaging over double figures in this thing, because he was a sort of a late addition, had some transfer rules and all that kind of good stuff. They had to kind of sit out, but he has really integrated himself into this team and has really, really taken off here. And also, too, J.J. Matthews, another one of these players right there on the cusp of double digits. So you got 5 guys that can score the ball, and this has been the problem that we've talked about for the past couple of years for the Red Wolves, is they just don't have enough options. Now you've got some guys who can score. There's not just that one dude that everybody kind of sits and watches around, watches him dribble, tries to make a play, stuff like that. You've actually got some options here. Eaton really starting to come into his own. We've seen Caleb Fields, the newbie, really take over some games here. And it's just really fun to watch these guys play ball. Now, interestingly enough here, their shooting percentages are a little meh, to say the least. But, again, they're getting the job done, and it's kind of they're really a statistical anomaly. So, again, enjoy the wins now while they're coming. They play some all right defense. There's some things that they do need to clean up. But overall, this is an all right team, a lot better than what they've been in years past. At this point, in the past couple of years, you know, they've been thinking, is there a chance that they're even going to make the Sun Belt tournament? Now it's a matter of how many buys are they going to get, because obviously, you know, the Sun Belt does the double buy for the top 2 teams in this tournament. You only get the single buy if you're the next couple seeds, and then so on and so forth like that. Don't have to worry about hosting potentially a game in that first round of games. Maybe they can just get the pass right in to New Orleans. But again, pop and stop drops. But again, you like to see the fact that there are multiple options. They're sharing the ball, and that's really what this team is going to be built on here, just kind of surviving a lot of games. And we've seen it a lot so far as the year's gone on. And, you know, the one thing that's going to be their Achilles heel is it's going to be the fact that they get down by so much. And we've seen it time and time again against various types of opponents here. Again, I mentioned Colorado State and Tulsa. Georgia State, they got down big. Troy, they were down big, and they've done it to a couple other teams where they get down. The first halves always look kind of uninspiring, and then all of a sudden in the second half, they wake up and they figure out what they're going to do. Even in the couple of losses to the Texas schools, it was kind of the same thing. They got down too much, and it was kind of just too much of a hole to climb out of. And in fact, they almost pulled it off against Texas State, but sort of ran out of gas. And Texas State also a solid defensive team. This is the South Alabama game here. Just kind of went down there and just kind of, just got your doors kicked in. So that was a tough one right there. But those are going to happen, especially in this conference where it seems to be pretty evenly matched. There's really not one or even two schools that look like they're really jumping ahead of the pack, or they're leaps and bounds better than what any of the other schools are. In fact, let's get into some of the stats here. I've been talking about stats here. Throw the stats up for me, guys. All right, here's the offensive numbers so far in the year. You look at them, you're thinking, not great. You see the points per game, they're 210th in the year, and that's what the parentheses are. Those are the national rankings for each statistical category. Spit it out there, guy. The rebounds per game, 31. That's way down at the bottom. That's something they really need to work on. Now, ironically, with that one, they don't allow a lot of rebounds. In fact, they're one of the top, I want to say, 100 teams in the country in terms of allowing rebounds, but they don't get a lot of rebounds. So there's not really a lot of opportunities to get rebounds in these games. Either ball goes in or ball gets turned over. Field goals made per game, 200 is not great. You'd like to see that number probably around 30, but they shoot okay from the three-point line, 35%, not too shabby from there. And then their free throws made per game, third in the country in terms of free throws made. In fact, if I remember right, they were top 10 in terms of fouls drawn. So they are fouled a lot. And we've seen that. A lot of these guys, they like to bang in there. Melo Eggleston, one of those guys. A lot of these guys like to drive the lane, and that kind of will explain some of the field goals made per game numbers there, because when you drive the lane, you get fouled and you miss, well, it doesn't count as a field goal made. Now, it doesn't also count as a field goal attempted. And also your points per game also there affected by that too. Just really slows the game down a lot. Let's take a look at some of the defensive numbers that they've got up there. Go ahead and switch the slide there for me, guys. Again, it's another one of those things. The points per game, we don't have the ranking up there, but it was in the 200s. When you allow more than what you score, it doesn't tend to be a very good number there. Rebounds per game, allow to 45. It's just an interesting statistical anomaly there. The shooting percentages, oh boy, when you play the Red Wolves, you hit. But you don't hit from three, ironically. Again, it's a very odd combination there. And then again, like I said, the personal fouls per game, it's 11th in the country. They're drawing just short of 29 fouls per game. So that puts you in the double bonus. If you split it up into the two halves, puts you in the double bonus both halves. And that's kind of a rarity to really do that. Now, the second half, usually things tighten up a little bit more. But again, they draw some fouls. It's kind of wild. Speaking of wild, the standings right now in the Sun Belt are wild. It is a log jam of teams. Go ahead and throw the standings up there for me, guys. There we go. You see the two Georgias with Little Rock there at 5-2, sitting number one, and then a lot of 4-3 teams here. And again, look at all that double-digit win totals. So it's not like people had crummy starts to the year and then they get into Sun Belt play and all of a sudden they start figuring it out. This is log jammed up there. You see ASU sitting at 12-6, looking pretty good. 4-3. Coastal Carolina, they've got them coming up this week. We'll talk about that here in just a hot second here. Go ahead and flip it there for me, guys. And again, you're going to see a lot of 4-3. South Alabama took it on the chin to them, and then a lot of 3-4. So, not a lot really separates the top from the bottom, except for ULM and Texas Arlington there, of which Texas Arlington beat Arkansas State a couple weeks ago here. But again, you don't see a lot of separation. It's still pretty early in this thing. We're about a third of the way through here with the conference play, and it's just kind of fascinating to see the numbers there. Basketball's a weird game, man, so you got to get ready. That's all I got to say for you guys is get ready. All right, coming up this week, they've got the Carolina two-step here at Appalachia State, at Coastal Carolina. They got Appalachia State Thursday night. Both these games are going to be on ESPN+. Obviously, you're not going to fly out there for the most part, but you can take in those games there. Both these teams, you saw in the standings, they're kind of right there in the middle of things. They both have double, well, I want to say they both don't. Appalachia State at 9-9 on the year. Coastal Carolina sitting at 11-7. So both these teams very capable. Coastal Carolina, one of the highest scoring teams in the country. App State, not too shabby either. Also being on the road, they're not really given much of a chance in this one. I want to say the ESPN predictor had Arkansas State at 18% to beat App State on the road. So tough environment, all that stuff. You kind of add things up. I don't know. I really don't know. It depends on which team shows up. If you have the teams that you've seen against the likes of Georgia State, forcing the overtime, and then really went off in that overtime. That's what's really great about that. Or against Troy, excuse me, and really went off in that overtime. That's the kind of team I want. The second half teams, those are the teams you really want to see in this thing. You want to see that Arkansas State second half team. And it don't want nothing to do with the first half teams, but got to play two halves. And that's really going to be the key going forward for the Red Bulls. Can they put together two halves? If they can do that, it's going to be a really dangerous team come Sun Belt tournament time here. All right, let's turn the page here. Let's talk about the ladies. Ladies, boy, it's been tough sailing for the ladies here of late. Rough start to the season. A lot of people could have probably seen that coming just because you got the new coach, Matt Daniel, out here trying to install his system, kind of dealing. We saw this with Coach Bellato a couple years ago. Had some athletes, just didn't really have the athletes for his system, things like that. So it's probably going to be kind of a tough scene here for this season. But I will say this. They're on a nice little 3-game winning streak. Got into Sun Belt play, took one on the chin there early on, and then won their next 3. So they're sitting right there towards the top of this thing. So kind of wild considering as lousy as the record looks overall with only the 6 wins, half of them in Sun Belt play. Really, we're getting into it. Sun Belt play is all that really matters in this thing here. But just quickly looking at some of the numbers for the ladies. They've got 3 averaging over double figures here. I'll get to the team stats here in a minute. But Peyton Martin, Jariah Washington, and Morgan Wallace really leading the way for him. Jada Ford also right there at 9 points per game in this thing as well. So you've got some options there as well. And then Tennyson Peyton also, or Peyton Tennyson, excuse me. I'm reading it backwards here. Also kind of helping out with a lot of things here. They've gone pretty deep with their bench, and you kind of like to see that here. Now, they're not getting a whole lot of deep contributions, at least on the scoreboard, but they are using it. So you're kind of just sort of playing with some combinations, seeing what works. They've kind of found 3 players that will score the ball, and with this team, it's hard to really tell right now. This 3-game winning streak kind of makes you think, have they figured something out? I don't know. All right, guys, throw the numbers up there for me offensively. And there you see it. It hasn't been great for the Red Wolves on the ladies' side here. 63 points per game. That puts them 226 in the nation. They're giving up a lot of points as well. Same thing with the rebounds. They're at 37 a game. It's not great. They're allowing some rebounds as well. Their field goal percentage isn't great. Out of about 340, they're sitting at 281. So kind of take that into consideration when you see the big numbers there. Of course, usually when you see a 2 in front of your ranking, it's not a great statistic. From the 3-point line, they really just can't hit. It's kind of what you expect out of a 6-win team. Not a whole lot of great offensive numbers, but you see the free throws made. This is something they have been good at for the past couple of years, regardless of who's coaching. They get to the free throw line, and they've made 208 on the year. That puts them 55th in the country, and that's where they've kind of made a living in this sort of their season so far. So that is one thing they can hang their hat on. It's one thing I think you'll really start to see going forward. Of course, when your big scorers or usually your down low presence, the free throws are going to follow. Didn't have a lot of the defensive numbers. It's hard to find the ladies' numbers. Ladies, so if anybody out there knows a good spot where I can find the defensive numbers, get at me there. But just kind of glancing at things, they allow a lot of shots. They don't foul a lot, or at least in terms of free throws. They're pretty solid when it comes to their free throws. So it should be interesting to see what this team does. You had an idea of what they were coming into this, and like I said, this 3-game winning streak makes you pause a little bit as the light come on. We don't know. It's going to be an interesting week for them as well. They've got an interesting little week here. They've got App State, hosting App State, but then they're on the road down here in Little Rock. So a little different scheduling snafus there, if you will. Both these games on the plus here, but come on down Saturday and get your fix in there with the big-time rival game here. It should be interesting with both of these teams. App State, one of the better scoring teams in the country in terms of the ladies game. Now this Little Rock game, always an interesting game. Little Rock, not quite the team that we've known them to be in the past few years. They're right behind him in the standings. In fact, throw the standings up. I skipped right through the standings here. Again, this one is the Wild Wild West. There you see, we've got 5 teams tied at the top of this thing at 3-1 in conference. Again, you see Coastal Carolina 13-2, Troy 12-3, Raging Cajuns 10-5, and then Arlington 9-7, Arkansas State at 6-9. But then Little Rock also right there in the mix. Also, they're 5-10, 3-1 in the standings. So you've got 6 teams tied for first. Wild right here. South Alabama, Georgia Southern there at 2-2, App State 1-3, Georgia State at 1-3, and then you've got Texas State and ULM in their usual spot there. Gosh, you got to feel bad for ULM. Boy, their women's program just ain't no good. But again, you see some of the stats there. So a lot of these games, they're big. They are big. And it's going to be interesting. Again, getting back to the Little Rock game, what's that going to look like here? It's going to be a grinded out kind of game. I'll tell you that right now. It's one thing that you can always expect from a Joe Foley team is they play some nasty defense. And when you don't shoot the ball very well and you're playing against a pretty good defense, you never know what's going to happen. Of course, rival games, you also never know what's going to happen in this one. So again, the ladies, App State and Little Rock on Saturday. So, I'm not really sure what's going on with the scheduling here, but it is what it is. So, there you go. Again, we're kind of getting back into this thing. We're getting our feet wet. It's the new year, 2020, new year, new me. But it's kind of the same old tale here with the Red Wolves. It's going to be interesting to watch both these programs going forward. Again, on the men's side, you don't really know what to expect from half to half. It's going to be fascinating. I think you're starting to kind of see Mike Pilato put his stamp on this thing. The addition of Mello Eggleston has been nothing but huge. Adds some depth, and he's also providing some punch as well. Of the 8 games he's played, he's started 3 of them, so he's starting to really acclimate himself into things, and you're starting to see a pretty formidable scoring punch from the Arkansas State men's team. On the women's side, again, it's kind of wait and see. We'll see what happens as we get into conference play here. They've really been kind of an enigma going forward, but it's probably going to be a little bit of a struggle again. You're in year 1 of the Daniel era, so hey, just be patient. Be patient. Things are going. They're going to get to the free throw line, so you got that going for you. All right, so again, there you go. We got the Coastal Carolina App State matchups on the men's side. Then you got App State and Little Rock over on the ladies' side this week. We're going to come back here for you guys next week. We're going to break all that down here. So this was kind of the overall season recap as we are to this point. And then going forward, we're going to get a little more specific week to week as we get back into this thing here. So from all the folks here at the Wolves Den, we will see y'all next week.